Hello and welcome. Thank you for watching Togetherness Media. This is Amir Lahijy live from Los Angeles. Wherever you are, my hope is for everyone to have a healthy and safe life. Stay in touch. Superstitious people. Yes. Are you or you know someone? Let's talk about this topic with Dr. Foojan Zeine, marriage family therapist, licensed marriage family therapist, and clinical psychologist, live from Los Angeles. Hello and welcome.
Hi, Amir. Nice to see you again.
Pleasure to see you again. It's Friday.
I gotta
Happy
keep doing
Friday.
this. Happy Friday to you too. I gotta keep doing this disclaimer. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology, but my license is marriage and family therapist.
Thank you.
When you
Yes.
say when you say clinical psychologist, people might think I have the license of clinical psychologist.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. This is the second week you correct me again.
I think you have that written somewhere, and you insist on giving me that license. Thank you, but that's not my license.
So, thank you so much. How was your week?
It's been great. It's been great. Although, it's been a week where today is September 11th. So, I remember the day that the crashes were. Yesterday was suicide prevention. So there's been a lot of conversation about traumas and, depression and all that goes on with events that happens in our lives where, either we choose it or it was chosen with us, that we could also talk about grief and how do we face death. But some other day, because I know you want to talk about superstition. So next week we can talk about the other ones.
Yes, we can talk about that deeply next week. But I really appreciate you mentioned about 9/11. Honestly, everybody they cannot forget that trauma, and still it was a big things in the United States. Do you remember that day?
I remember it vividly. I remember going to the office. I'm sorry, I woke up in the morning and then I was just seeing the TV and I thought, this is a movie. And then it was like, no, it's not. And the horror came over me. It's almost like, your whole world with safety shatters in a sense. And I'm sure that many people who are living in war zones or have been through war have experienced that before. I was blessed, but I never experienced that before. So the whole safety was shattered. And I remember going to the office and everybody was shocked. We're all sitting together with my therapists and, everybody who worked in my clinic. And we're just sitting there like in shock and in awe. And then you kept watching it, and it was like re-traumatizing everybody because we kept watching it and over and over and over the clip. And every time it was becoming, more shocking and traumatizing. But it's 19 years ago.
Yeah, 19 years ago. I remember I was front of TV and I was watching Voice of America, and it was live. And after the first attack, they start broadcasting live, and I was watching, that things, and when second one happened and all that things, it was, in the first few seconds I was thinking it's a trailer of movie, and then, exactly same feeling I had like you. Yeah. So, what's the psychological reason behind people having superstitious?
Superstition, first of all, doesn't just show up for us. It comes generation after generation, and it's kind of handed down to us. And the same way you listen to your parents when they say, don't lie, don't do things, or protect yourself, and this is good and this is bad. we take what they say and we take what our culture says. And superstition is one of those things that we also, it's a hand me down from a cultural perspective. They just keep giving it to us, and we're like, okay, obviously that's part of the culture. And then we take it on. I think that any of these concepts that are unknown, but in some way give us some guidelines, which you
Mhm.
can't really prove either, but they're giving us guidelines. So that's why, in order to reassure ourselves, you remember we had a program about certainty and uncertainty, remember?
Right.
Everybody's always uncertain. So we grab something that gives
Mhm.
us some sort of a certainty.
Mhm.
So then, they'll come in and categorize astrology. They'll come and categorize, the Chinese years. You got 12 Chinese years, you got 12 months, and each one of these, means this is who you are. And if you want to get to know people, you just ask them. All you need to do is ask them, what month were you born or what year you were born? There you go. You got them, like you know them now. That's
Mhm.
not accurate, but it gives us some sort of a classification. Oh, I want to marry somebody. Let me
Mhm.
see if our signs are compatible. And it gives you a little bit of a false certainty, a little bit of a false, like, oh, I know what's going to happen in the future. Or you read it in the magazine, oh, next month, this month, these are the things that are going to happen for you. And the things that you don't like, you're like, that's not about me. And the ones that is vague enough that you could kind of put yourself in there and then look for it. So it gives you a little bit of more like predictability. And usually we think that predictability means safety. That if I know something bad is going to happen, I'm going to protect myself. I'm going to look for it and be prepared. And if it's a good happening, of course, I'll just take it and it's beautiful. I'll be looking for the good.
Right.
So, in the midst of not knowing and all the uncertainty, all of the categorizations and these, superstition gives us some rope to hang on to kind of like guide us to move forward and bring down our anxiety. It's not the truth anyway.
Uh, do you believe in horoscope and astrology?
No, I use it as
No.
good entertainment. I think
Okay.
it's fun. I think it's fun like any other fun entertainment. The same way as I don't believe in movies, but it's fun. I watch them and they're fun.
Yeah, but
I remember, when I used to get the books of, love signs based on your horoscope. And then you
yes.
keep looking at, I'm a Scorpio. So what is it, Scorpio? And then the fun thing is always this. I mean, every time I tell people I'm a Scorpio, I get like, ooh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then they believe. Okay, I'm glad. I'm so happy. I'm thinking exactly like you. Is the fun, but when you're, talking with the people, they are thinking like their religion. They are, they are attached to them very, very hardly, and they trying to tell you it's a science. So. And I cannot believe it. Someone, born in 9/11, for example, this year, their behavior and personality is the same as someone born in the same day, 10 years, 50 years, or 100 years, or 500 years ago. It's not possible.
It really isn't. Like there has been attempt for research and science to monitor this concept, to have the personality types, and plus to have the concept of predictability. And the
Mhm.
science has not been able to produce any validity in the astrology aspect. I think astrology tries to use astronomy as part of the backup for the
Mhm.
astrology, but it's
Right.
not relevant at all. It has nothing to do with each other. I
Right.
think that has to do with a lot of, old wives' tales, which, people sat together and looked at the sky and not knowing what's going on, they made up their own story. Um, I was talking to one of the psychologists, prominent psychologists, and he said, we're not just human beings, we're also human narrators because all the time what we're doing is creating stories in our head. And can you imagine sitting not having all these, games and plays and phones and, doing everything on your phone. People used to sit together beside the fire and look up at the sky and look at all the stars. And then they would see different shapes, and they would see different things and they would come up with the stories. And obviously, children would sit beside your parents and they're like, what about this? And what about that? And what is that? And
Mm-hmm.
why? Why? And, grown ups came up with stories.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
stories just, gave led to the next, to the next, to the next. And, these are the way that the stories get clumped together. And that's why. Now, I would assume that, if you were born in winter or summer, or, they could be due to some factors of
Mm-hmm.
environmental factors that you would create some things that are similar together. I would assume that children who are raised in Iceland in a certain time would probably have more similar concepts than somebody who was living in Africa at that time, just
Mm-hmm.
because, of your environment. And I'm
Right.
sure that some part of the environmental concept created some of these characters and stories together. Um, but again, is it scientific? No. Is it fun? Absolutely. And you can, all stories are fun. You're a filmmaker. That's all you do. You create stories to create entertainment for people. So if you look at it as that, it's great. It's like
Yeah,
you could
but
have fun with it.
yeah, Dr. Zane, but some people, many people believe this and base their belief system based on these behaviors. They make it decisions and serious decisions for life.
Even if they
What?
do go to that, though, they will go to a fortune teller. So
Mm-hmm.
people who want to try to figure out something about the future and not wait to
Mm-hmm.
see how it unfolds, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to predict, and they don't know, and they can't really make decisions on things on their own, and they want another factor from outside. Beside the facts and the evidences that they have, they really want something else from outside. They're going to hang on to anything. So they
Right.
will go to people who would, get coffee grinds and read through them. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
see a horse here and I see a cow here, and this is what it means. Or they have tea leaves, or the Chinese culture has the I Ching, and every culture, every old culture, ethnic, in like historical cultures have their own version of things where they needed to predict something, and the stories came up.
So, uh, let's go and for last question, what's gonna happen in their brain and they're thinking that way?
I think every single human being, for their own protection, attempts to predict. This is what our brain does. We attempt to predict and create, we project. So,
Mm-hmm.
usually, many times, if they're only going based on factual aspects, they will go based on data, what is there, and kind of like project what was the past into the future. There are also other people who become very creative. They don't just go by facts and data, they get creative with all their projections. For the people who are getting creative, all the other stories are coming up and create. So, what happens in their brain? They're just getting very, very, very creative, and they're not just um, taking facts into consideration. Does it work? Their prediction doesn't work. It's a toss up between whatever they're behaving that time. It'll give them more accuracy about what might come up. On the other hand, you know, they're not going to be able to, unless they actually have science behind it, they're not going to predict the next, um, earthquake or any of those. Anything that would happen in the future. They're going to meet a person, whose their first name is going to start with A, and they're going to see such and such. Now, are there people who have talent, and there is some esoteric talent again out there that there are some people who have the ability, but even if you want to take that, then you have to go into the physics of is time linear or circular or all encompassing. these questions haven't been found out. So, at this point, let's say with the science we have at this point, none of this has been proven. So all we could say is not scientific. Does it mean it doesn't exist? I don't know what exists or not beyond what science at this point telling us. But does it exist that you have categorization of people? No, we don't have a categorization of people that all scorpions are similar. And then you could say, oh, the scorpion who's in at this time because their moon is over Mercury and this and that. I have no idea how these type of things showed up for people. Is it true? It hasn't been proven. Is it true beyond proven? I don't know. I can only say that I believe it when it's proven by science. Beyond that, I could just say it's good entertainment. I have fun with it, and I hope other people have fun with it. But would I make decisions, my life decisions based on these aspects? No. The same thing that you would make life decisions on. Have you heard this game? Ooh, let me turn on the radio, and whatever the message of the next song is, I'm going to make my decision based on that. That's pretty much as random as that.
Right. What about the meaning of numbers? Some people, they believe 10, 10, 11, 11, 1, 11, 12, 12. And sometimes I was thinking maybe they're waiting for that time and then watching, waiting. Oh, it's 12, 12. And then they bring it up. And then there's a meaning.
Exactly. Yeah,
what
there's
about
actually
that?
a whole concept of numerology. People name their children based on the numerology. That's even more ancient. That's even I've seen many Kabbalists use the numerology. So there's a lot more. There's again, ancient concept. Most of these things were at the time that science was not as prevalent as today. So it was people tried to create categories the same way science is. They were trying to put things in different classifications and come up with commonalities and come up with patterns. Exactly what we do in science right now. Look at how stock market goes. Look at everything. It's just patterns of numbers. We still do the same thing. Now we just have different equipments to prove or not prove all of that. Then they didn't have anything. So they would just classify things together. They would bring things together which would be similar. And then they would, kind of like read these patterns and come up with stuff and then label them. And that's how it all started. And it's continuing while we have now equipments and to measure things and move forward with it. Does science at this point also predict? Yeah, that's what they create hypotheses. But today what they do is they create the hypothesis and they attempt to see it. To be honest with you, most of psychology at this point, it's still just hypothesis. We're barely trying to find machinery that scans the brain and actually is telling us what is happening in the brain. Most of psychology so far has been created by observation. Based on that observation, we create patterns and philosophies, and we put it together and look at name them and categorize them. Cognitive sciences, in the way that it has been with the brain mapping and brain mapping sciences, are just very, very new. We don't even how many years ago we got functional MRI to just even scan the brain, and it's not even doing thoroughly any the greatest that it can. I'm just finding, based on some of the research that I'm doing with people, just seeing how many equipments are about to be born where it can scan the brain, it can give us more understanding of what's going on with our brain and therefore the psychology of the brain. So you can see that the more the science is moving forward, the more we can actually have some proof of this. Beyond it,
Yes.
a lot of good stories.
Yes, yeah. We have a brain function program. In that program, I'm very interested about, neuroscience and neuroplasticity, and I'm practicing, and it's working very well. I really like it. Thank you so much for your information. You start with 9/11, and after 19 years. So, did you heard anything very interesting and touching your feeling today?
About 9/11?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
No, I haven't. I haven't really been looking at TV. I've been working all day, and but what it had for me, it was interesting that it brought up the concept of 9/11 was so. You know, I was also in the Northridge earthquake here that happened,
Mm-hmm.
1994.
Right.
And I remember on both of them there was a lot of destruction. Northridge looked like a war zone at that point. But I think it was different when you thought there was a people attacking people versus the nature just realigning itself, and we were part of the destruction also.
Right.
Um, the concept of the horror that got created, the paranoia that got created, the fear that's out there, and then you could get it that here and now, we don't have maybe the similar fear because they got together and really were looking at dismantling terrorism and doing
Mm-hmm.
that. But now we really get that we have other types of fears that are being, kind of like ignited for us.
Right.
And I think that the more that we really don't make decisions based on fear, and we make decisions about, um, how to come together as humans and create it so that we're not destroying ourselves or anybody else, and that we could create and build any of the nations together and be together. I think that would be the most important message that showed up for me. Let's not work from fear. Let's work from loving and being together and a win-win situation for all of us. I think that's the most important fact that would diffuse
Right.
what happened 19 years ago.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a very beautiful weekend and see you next time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate for your time. Thank you. So, stay tuned with us and tell to your friends, come to Togetherness Media, and just tell them to download our app. Stay in touch.
Yummy, 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 yummy. Yummy, 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 yummy. Mais moi je m'appelle Weshden.